Rangers fans, welcome to Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast powered by Believe Network. I'm Andrew Chelney. That's Nick Zararis. And Nick, the Rangers, when they score goals, when they put the puck in the back of the net, they win games. When they score at least one goal, they are 3-0-1. When they score more than one goal, they're undefeated, the 3-0. They've only given up 12 goals in 7 games, which if you have told me that last season, I'd look at you like you have 6 heads.
It is a real testament to Mike Sullivan understanding the limitations of the roster. We talked about it quite a bit last week, that this is what he had to come to in Pittsburgh as well. That as the Penguins, coming off of those 2 cups, started to experience the brain drain of younger players pricing themselves out or older players aging themselves out of effectiveness, he had to reinvent to some degree how they were going to play. And yeah, the dive bomb forecheck was still there, and without foot speed, that started to work against the Penguins. But if you go and look at the underlying numbers for 21-22, 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25, the Penguins were a decent possession team. They consistently had a majority of the scoring chances, a decent chunk of the expected goals. But something that jumped out to me in my research, and something I had noticed over the weekend, was the Penguins had underperformed their expected goals in 3 of the last 4 years. Mike Sullivan was the coach in Pittsburgh, and the 1 year they performed over, it was by less than 1%. So that tells you something about the way those teams play. And for these Rangers, who are mirroring that to some degree, where they are dramatically underperforming their expected goals, especially at home. I'll be curious to see if they can get one on the board tonight against Minnesota. But at the very least, you see the mechanics of a functioning hockey team. Now, this does not solve all of the Rangers' problems. They definitely do have needs. They definitely do have deficiencies. But playing the way they are right now is giving them a reasonable chance every single night. And that's not a particularly high bar. But right now, in the foundational stages of figuring out whatever this team is going to be, that's a really solid start. There are plenty of teams right now who look atrocious, who don't look like professional hockey teams. And that's not a high bar. But in spite of what we saw from the Rangers last year, this is a solid start. There is something to feel good about here. Now, there's work to do, of course, but they've only played 7 games. There's plenty of time for that work to be done.
This looks like a team that wants to win, which for a good chunk of last season, you couldn't say that. And I guess that's an indictment more of last season than it is of this year. But, this system, the way that they're playing, we talked about this last week, it's very repeatable, where you're not riding the PDO wave of, our goalie's making 84 saves a night, and we're getting 8 shots off every game, but 7 of them are going in. Oh my God, this is the best team ever. They're not playing that way this season, which is, I don't even know. I don't know what to do with my hands, because this is how they played for like a decade. It seems like around that time. So finally having, the structure in place from Mike Sullivan. And again, how much of this is new coach buff? How much is this everybody buying in? How, is it going to wear off as time goes on? Who knows? But as of right now, through 7 games, going to be 8 after tonight against the Wild, this looks like a team that is competently playing with the puck and without the puck. They understand how to clog the defensive end. They understand how to not give up 17 2-on-1s a game like they did last year. There's a lot of, the wins are going to come. If they keep playing this way, we can talk about, the expected goals or this, whatever. Yeah, they do need more scoring. They never really did fill the gap that Kreider left. They traded away Kreider. They didn't replace him with anything. So that those goals are going to have to come by committee. But the style of play is repeatable, and the Rangers are playing much better in this style.
So I wrote down a few ideas here, and something I wanted to expand on your job as a coach is to put your guys in the best possible position for them to succeed. I know Bill Belichick's kind of a joke right now, but I always go back to something Belichick said back in the early 2000s when they were starting to put together the DNA of those teams that would ultimately go on to win all those championships. But his premise is, if you get to the professional ranks, if you get to the NFL, if you get to the NHL, you have to be good at something. Now, that might only be one trait you have. That's a plus trait that you're good at, but it is incumbent upon a coach to be able to identify that and extract that from you. You need to be put in a position to succeed. And anytime a player fails or gets exploited over and over again, that becomes a coaching issue. If a player is just outright deficient, they struggle at something, that tells you they are being put in a position where that weakness, that failure consistently is being amplified over and over again. And we talked about that a lot over the years in regards to the team's defense. The idea that these are the same mistakes for 3-4 seasons from Jacob Trouba, from Keandre Miller, from Braden Schneider, from Ryan Lindgren. These are the same mistakes over and over and over again. And instead of trying to change why the mistake is happening by changing the pairs, changing responsibilities, they're making the mistake over and over again. And something I think Mike Sullivan is doing a good job of right now is minimizing the Rangers' weaknesses. On paper, the Rangers don't have a lot of foot speed. They don't have a lot of finishing talent. Those are two serious problems in today's NHL. Shooting percentages have never been higher. Save percentages have never been lower. It has never been easier to produce
unless
goals.
You go back to like the 70s where goalies
in the contemporary
move.
NHL, NHL, in the salary cap era,
sure.
It has never been easier to score. And because of that, the Rangers are effectively behind the 8 ball. As you said, they did not replace Chris Kreider's on paper in pencil 20 to 25 goals. They were expecting some combination of Cooley getting a little bit better, one of Berard, Othman, or Perreault giving them 5 to 10, maybe 5 to 10 from Darren Radish, 5 to 10 from Parsonen or Brodzinski. That combination was going to give them the 20-ish goals they needed. And as
I'll tell you what they didn't expect is Matthew Robertson to score.
Yeah,
I'll tell you
we'll get to Robertson. We'll get to Robertson because that is worth talking about.
Yes.
But in minimizing the Rangers' weaknesses, the fact that they don't have a ton of finishing talent, that they don't have a lot of speed, and that individually their defenders are not great man-on-man guys, we switched to his own defense, so where it's a little bit less responsible. You're on less of an island in your own end, and the Rangers' defense has been elite this year. Part of the reason, and we've talked about this extensively over the years, part of the reason Shesterkin has the numbers he does right now is that they're not asking him to do a lot. And when you ask your star players, hey, man, you only got to make 25 saves tonight, he's going to look around and say, I can do that. That's doable. I can make 25 saves, and we can win this game 3-1. That I can do. 43 saves and win the game 4-3, that's a little more difficult. Now, there are drawbacks to this, and I do think we'll discuss them in a minute, but at a baseline, Mike Sullivan is minimizing the team's weaknesses, and I don't necessarily know what the strength of this Rangers team yet. I would dare to say the Rangers themselves don't know what the strength of this team is yet, but They are playing in a style with an intensity that is going to keep them in a lot of games. And as we know, the margins in this league are small as they ever have been. Anybody can win on any given night. The Blackhawks have a pulse apparently now because Spencer Knight's good at hockey. All it takes is a couple good plays in these close games to swing them to go your way. And that's the key. We talked about this a ton the year they won the President's Trophy. Good teams find a way to win games, even when they're not playing particularly well. And that's really going to be the point of demarcation for this specific iteration of the Rangers. Can they get their floor to a high enough point that they can hang around in a ton of games? Because if they can, they're going to be a tough out. That's not to say they're going to have a very high ceiling, but if you hang around a lot, you have Shesterkin, you have Fox, that's going to keep you in a lot of games.
Think of it this way. The Rangers are the only team in the league that has played 7 games and have only given up 12 goals against. Only the Caps have given up 12. The Avs have given up 10, but they've played only 6 games. And the Hurricanes have given up 11, and they've played 5 games. The Rangers, in 7 games played, have given up less than 2 goals a game. Somehow, some way, they are 3-3-1. But again, it all goes back to the idea that if you replay those same games that they lost, more likely than not, they are going to win them. And my idea is you would much rather get goalied in October and play that same way the entire season leading into the playoffs and keep playing that defensive brand of hockey into the playoffs and into hopefully May and June, to where this is repeatable, this is sustainable. Yeah, I would much rather than be scoring 8 goals a game, sure. But this is the kind of hockey that the Rangers can go into pretty much any game and repeat. And that's what you want to see. This is positive movement in the direction of, okay, we went from being wholly opportunistic in every game possible, where we're going to get maybe 14 shots, but like 6 of them are going to be off of odd man rushes or whatever, and we're just going to do nothing else the rest of the game and wait for power plays to happen, to now it's, okay, we're not giving up 40 shots a game. We're giving up a lot less than that. We're clogging we're clogging not only the middle of the ice, but also in the defensive end. It's a lot harder now for people to get open. Okay, so now we can use that to our advantage and turn it the other way. This type of play is something that the Rangers can play in Game 8, Game 46, Game 87, hopefully if they make the playoffs, right? Like, you aren't relying on outside factors to win you the game. And some people can argue, the game against Montreal, Sam Montembeault gave up a couple of goals he probably shouldn't have. And yeah, you're probably right. But
you get rewarded for playing.
You get rewarded, right? Exactly. They got goalied in Washington, and then they got a couple of those goals back in Montreal. That's just the way that hockey works. Sometimes these things happen, right? So the overall idea, I think, to get from all of this is, hey, the goals, especially at home, hopefully I'll be there at the Garden tonight, so hopefully they score a goal. That'd be nice. The goals at home are going to come. I think the goals in general are going to come because they're playing a style of hockey that is conducive to their personnel, way more so than what they have been. And they just need to not get stopped by Dominik Hasek, and they'll be fine.
So there is drawbacks to this. That is the one caveat I will say is there are teams, and there is 1 to 2 teams every year who produce these types of underlying metrics, and the goals just never come. The Penguins the last couple of years under Mike Sullivan, the Calgary Flames last year, and the last year of Darryl Sutter come to mind as well. These are teams that have talented players at the top end of their roster. And ultimately, playing this way puts more of a magnifying glass on your best players, because we can be realistic about this. I don't expect a whole lot of offense from Rempe, Edstrom, Carrick, and whatever happens to be the permutation of the third line that given night, whether it's Parsonen, Brodzinski, Noah Labo, whoever happens to be out there on the third line that given night. We don't expect a whole lot from them, and that's reasonable. Like we were saying before, you got to ask guys to do what they can do. And the fourth line is doing an amicable job of effectively ethically time wasting, keeping the puck down in the other end of the rink, playing no defense, bleeding clock, riding possession, and living to fight to the next sequence. The third line is doing a reasonable job of that as well. But when you only have 2 lines that can effectively contribute offense consistently, and we'll see how long it takes for Trocheck to get back, that puts more of a amplification on their perceived weaknesses. That's why losing to Toronto the way they did was as infuriating as it was, because that game was sitting there for the taking. And who loses you the game? Panarin and Zibanejad. Zibanejad for fanning on the one-timer and not getting back, and Panarin for not back-checking at all. Yeah. And that's the thing with these types of games. When you're going to be in the fight the way they are, where offense is going to be hard to come by because of the nature of your team, finishing talent is at a premium. If your star players cannot contribute, cannot handle that enhanced responsibility, it's going to lead to a lot of 2-1 and 1-0 losses. And I would point you, the Edmonton Oilers are dealing with this exact same problem. The Oilers have 1.5 lines that can score at 5-on-5. And right now, McDavid and Draisaitl aren't really going yet, and they are averaging 2 goals per game. So if a team with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl is going to struggle to score consistently with this same problem, dare I say a team with JT Miller and Artemi Panarin as their 2 best players will likely mirror the same thing to some degree. And look, the Rangers have time, and I do think Miller and Panarin are starting to ease into it to some degree. Last week, we were both pretty harsh on them for playing what appeared to be injured, but it looks like they are starting to settle in, and to some degree, that might be just a byproduct of not really having a preseason.
Panarin they played well in Montreal. They really didn't play well in Toronto. That overtime was, for lack of a better way to say this, hilarious.
Yes.
It was a hilarious overtime of errors, but then they came back in Montreal and Zibanejad skated well. He was reading the game well. Panarin was shooting the puck. He had that nice goal off the post. They bounced back. It might be that they just didn't. I don't want to say they didn't care, but like the ramp up towards the regular season, whether that be injuries they were dealing with or what have you, that could have played an impact towards why they had such a not terrific start. But Zibanejad off the rip played better like in the first couple of games, and then he had that wild Montreal game in which I don't want to dive too deep into, but and then not in Montreal, the Toronto game, and then he played well in Montreal, so at least Panarin had a good Montreal game, and we'll kind of see where that goes from here, because up until this point he's been a guy on the ice, and you can't have that for your best player making $11.5 million.
It does seem like, and based on the tweets, that it looks like Soucy's going to come in for Vakanainen tonight, which may or may not be a good thing, but that's a good way to segue to talking about Matthew Robertson and one of our favorite subjects when it comes to the Rangers, roster management. Because we can be straight up here. Why did you call up Scott Morrow to play an injured Will Borgen after LTIRing Trocheck? The whole point of LTIRing Trocheck and losing the cap accrual is that, okay, we need the roster spot. Someone needs to take it. Then why are we playing the injured guy? Wouldn't we be better off playing the younger guy who, sure, he might struggle, but he's got to figure it out eventually. And we know, based on the nature of Borgen's injury, where he's day-to-day and it seems to be on a how he feels basis, that he could be out as soon as 1 or 2 games. And for 1 or 2 games on a waiver-exempt player, you're better off playing. And I used Matthew Robertson as the segue because that's a great example. That is a guy who nobody expected anything from, who we all felt was on the roster basically by default. And he has come in and done more than an adequate job in a temporary role. And now you have to ask yourself, well, if Soucy's going to come back in and Vakanainen's going to go out and Robertson is playing his way into playing consistently, what does that mean for Morrow? What does that mean for anybody who's on the defensive pipeline? And look, I'm not saying Matthew Robertson has proven anything crazy. He's played all of 5 games.
Sure.
But if you have a test case there of young, unproven guy, low expectations, outplaying a veteran to the degree that Vakanainen is probably going to sit tonight and Soucy's going to come back in, why can't Morrow do that? Why did you bring Morrow up and have him fly around and hang out with the team and not play for a week if you had the access? And it goes back to something we talked about a ton last year. You know what would have been sick? If they gave Matthew Robertson 20 games at the end of the year last year instead of trading a 3rd-round pick for Carson Soucy. But alas, they felt the need to do that instead of waiting till the summer. They could have easily traded for Soucy during the summer. The Canucks were not exactly robust or flush in cap space. They would have done that then. But instead of giving a guy a chance, and that's really all I'm clamoring for here, give these guys a chance. I don't want to see Taylor Radish play anymore. I would much rather see Berard play. I would much rather see Perreault or Othman play. Give these young guys a chance, because then, even though we're talking about, high floor, low ceiling, maybe you get lucky. Maybe for the first time in the history of this team, a 1st-round pick forward comes in and plays reasonably well or looks the part. And look, I don't even need a ton of stats. Just come in, look the part, so that way in January or February, we're saying he's starting to put it together. 5 goals over the course of a month for a guy who wasn't in the lineup in October. That's a good feeling. But instead, you could make the same point for Vakanainen. Why was Vakanainen playing every game last year when you had defensemen in the pipeline who were worth pursuing a chance for? It's frustrating, but this is proof it can work out sometimes. And look, Robertson might not be in the lineup in a week from now, but so far he has given them more than enough to stay in.
Yeah, and Off the rip here, and I was tweeting this out over the course of the past week, I do think this is kind of the beginning of the end of Vakanainen as a mainstay here. And, maybe some of this is Hopia. Maybe some of this is, Urho Vakanainen just isn't a top 6 NHL defenseman. So when you're playing him in a top 6 role, that is when your defense struggles. That's when your team overall struggles. He doesn't have the puck movement. He doesn't have the defensive capabilities. Doesn't have to score. He doesn't have the skating either. He's a slower skater, which as a defenseman, you really don't want to see. And Matthew Robertson came in, and immediately, Mike Sullivan trusted him more. I mean, it took one game. I was shocked. It wasn't even. It was like a period. It was literally like 2 shifts. And Mike Sullivan was like, oh, no, Robertson's going to play more than Vakanainen. It took no time at all for the new head coach of this team to look at Vakanainen and say, I don't like the way you play, dog. And Matthew Robertson came in and essentially stole his roster spot. It's going to be interesting to see what the top 6 looks like with everyone healthy and where Scott Morrow fits into that. I would have to think that, again, there's always 7 games of the season. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be other, roster permutations that we'll see throughout the course of the season. And I would have to think that the Rangers have a plan for Scott Morrow, right? You don't trade Keandre Miller to Carolina and acquire a player who is, by all accounts, the Hurricanes' best prospects. According, he was either the best or one of the best prospects in the Hurricane system, and you don't really know what to do with him, right? So there's bound to be some kind of long-term plan, I would think, for Scott Morrow, whether that's for this season, maybe beyond. I have no idea. But I think at the very least, you got to feel good for Matthew Robertson. Obviously, from a human perspective, it sucks that Urho is kind of lost his spot. But from a pure talent, from a pure roster construction standpoint, Matthew Robertson just came in a position where no one thought he would do anything, especially because he didn't make the opening night roster, right? He wasn't out there. You would think, okay, well, he's going to come in, he's going to be fine, maybe, and then he's kind of like a Band-Aid for when somebody else comes back. But he's looked good. He's not Adam Fox, he's not Chelios, he's not Brian Leach, whatever, but he's looked good. And I think that in and of itself has already cemented him, or at least close to cemented him, over Vakanainen, which, again, I can't believe we're saying this. Like, this is, oh, wait, head coaches can make adjustments? Oh, Nick, I don't know if you know that. This is crazy.
And the thing is, that role, what Robertson's doing, those 15, 16 minutes per night, they're not flashy, they're not exciting.
Sure.
But that's all you need from that role.
Yep.
Old friend Ben Harper literally signed to go play in China this morning. So you get an understanding of the threshold we've been looking at for third pair left defensemen here. It was not going to take a lot to outplay Vakanainen. It was not going to take a lot to outplay Susi. We'll see if Susi can get his feet under him and figure out, what it's like to be a good NHL defenseman again. It's been a while since he did that.
And even Will Borgen hasn't looked that bad.
No, the thing with Borgen, and he has a high floor. He's big and he skates well. The question is the puck skills, which is basically every defenseman on this team other than Adam Fox, as far as can you field the puck cleanly? Can you get it where you need it to go? And can you be in the right place at the right time? Borgen's okay at being at the right place at the right time. It's simply a matter of, can he break the puck out cleanly, or whoever he's playing with, can he get the puck to them? Because the traits are there. The traits are there. It's just he hasn't ever really put it all together for an extended period of time. I mean, this guy's almost 30 years old, and he just played his 300th NHL game like last week. So we're not talking about somebody who has a huge track record, but getting to the bigger picture and just kind of where they're at. The drawback to this style, and I had said this before in the limitations, but I have numbers for you. They are currently having a majority of the chances in a given game. They're 10th in scoring chances share, they're 9th in shot share, they're 7th in goal share, they're 5th in expected goal share, and they're 3rd in high danger chance share. But when you go and look at it on a rate basis, in terms of just overall quantity of offense in relation to other teams, that's what tells me that there's offense on the table, that this isn't the most efficient way to play. But again, this is a tactical decision. They are playing this way because it gives them the best chance to win, because they're only 14th in rate of scoring chances. They're 15th in rate of shot chances. They're 27th in goal rate chances. They're 10th in expected goal chances rate and 7th in high danger chances rate. So there aren't a lot of chances in a given Ranger game right now. Something in the ballpark, 45, 50 overall scoring chances up for grabs. And the Rangers are having a majority of them. They're having 28, 30 of those 50. The problem is they are going to eventually get into games where the tempo's higher, where it's going to be 65, 70, 80 scoring chances overall up for grabs in a given game. And when that happens, it's going to be a real question of, can the way they're playing sustain in those more up-tempo, higher-paced games? Because right now this is working. Fundamentally, they are in all of these games and they have a chance to work. This is a conscious decision based on the guys they have, based on the talent they have. Can they find a way to squeeze a little bit more out, to get a little bit more efficient? And that question is very indeterminate, which is what makes this interesting. I don't know if Panarin, Miller, Zibanejad, or Trocheck, once he's healthy, is just going to get going. Are they going to be a team that has the occasional 6 or 7 goal outburst when they get a night against a shitty goalie? Or are they going to be pulling teeth offensively for a good chunk of the season because they just don't have the finishing talent? And that trade-off is real. We have watched the Carolina Hurricanes do this for the entirety of the Rod Brind'Amour era. They do not have great finishing talent. They opt for game control, capitalize on the few chances you do get. Can the Rangers' best players take advantage of that? Because if the Rangers can get Panarin, Miller, Trocheck, Zibanejad, can they get 2 of those 4 guys going concurrently? So maybe the power play gets going as well. But on paper, this is working. The question becomes, how efficient can you make this process? Because efficiency is the name of the game. It's great if you have a majority of the chances, a majority of the expected goals, a majority of the high danger chances. But can we take that next step? I made that allusion last week to going from crawling to standing to walking to running. That's kind of the key. That's the key to understanding this season, because they're going to have a chance in a lot of games, but can their star players swing games for them the way they have in the past?
Yeah, and I do think part of it is offense will come in the form of a trade, I would think, at some point throughout the course of the season. I would think, based off of the way they've played this season, if through 7 games, if they can continue playing this type of hockey and the offense just isn't there because the personnel can't get it done, I would think maybe a trade for an auxiliary player, maybe a third liner, maybe somebody that can actually fill a top 6 role that isn't Connor Sherry, maybe is going to come in, maybe December, maybe January, somewhere along those lines before the deadline, just to kind of see, okay, what if we insert a little bit more offense to this forward group that, isn't a question mark like a Pro, Brett Berard, etc. If we inject an established forward that has proven they can score goals here, what happens to this offense then? I think Chris Drury can do that kind of exploratory trade where that he has, extra prospects, he has extra players that he can deal that won't break the bank, that he can kind of just take a shot in the dark at, see what's up. A team like San Jose, a team like Chicago, even though they're in the playoff spot right now, I don't think they're going to hold on to it. A team like, I guess, Calgary, that's completely spiraling out of control right now. See what they do come December and January. Is be like, okay, well, y'all are trying to lose. Can we have one of your players and you take insert pick or insert player, insert prospect here to see what happens. And if you inject that new offense, and we mentioned this 20 minutes ago, you did not replace Chris Kreider's goal scoring. You did not. okay, well, you do that in December and January with at least a little bit of more offensive injection, and then maybe we're cooking with something. And then come the actual deadline, you'll have a better understanding of what your team needs. Do you still need offense? What are your biggest holes on this roster? And then you kind of go from there. That is, I think, a good way to kind of gauge this. I think until that point, the Rangers are going to try different permutations and different, ways of creating offense with the roster that they have, and kind of say, okay, maybe Noah Laba can contribute a couple more goals than we thought. Maybe Matthew Robertson can continue shooting knuckle pucks, and it keeps going in, and maybe he plays Sam Montembeault every night, and he gets 4, 5, 6 goals by Christmas, right? So if you get a couple of those extra ones by committee, you'll be more okay. Because as of right now, there still is that big hole offensively that you haven't really figured out.
I mean, yeah, they're averaging, I think it's 1.7 goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 right now. Granted, they're only conceding 1.25 goals against per 60 minutes, which is the most impossible way to win games in 2025. And it's interesting to watch in real time happen, because the capacity here isn't very high. But by virtue of Shesterkin having less work to do, he can be a little bit better in the work he does have to do. And I realistically think that's probably your best path in terms of just gaming out what you think you can depend on. Of the things in the Rangers' coffer right now, I do trust Shesterkin the most of anyone on this team to perform consistently on a good basis. And if you can commit to this defense, and my only real concern, and I do think this is reasonable, how long can they be patient? That's the question here, because I agree with you. Fundamentally, if you keep having a majority of the scoring chances, a majority of the dangerous scoring chances over an 82-game season, the offense should come at some point. But you do occasionally have those outliers. You have the Hurricanes, who, are a 6 or 7% team at 5-on-5. The Panthers are a 6 or 7% team at 5-on-5, but the Panthers have guys who are good at scoring those lower percentage chances. The Flames of Daryl Sutter, who I alluded to. There was one iteration of the Kings prior to not their current coach, Jim Hiller, whoever the coach before Jim Hiller was, prior to that coach. Yeah, but the coach before Todd McClellan was somebody who had them playing really good possession hockey, but they couldn't score. So I do think you reach a tipping point where it should happen. The offense should come. But will they have the individual patience on a player-to-player basis to maintain this? Because it is really hard to get buy-in to change what guys do. And right now, it's kind of working, even though the results aren't there yet. Can you maintain the requisite level of buy-in you need to play this way if the offense doesn't come? If it's mid-November and they're still shooting 6 or 7% as a team in all situations, are guys going to continue to play this way? Or are we going to see the Rangers maybe make a bit of a trade-off and say, we need to concede a little defense to create more offense, because as good as we are defensively right now, we're not scoring enough. We are losing because we're not scoring enough. Or do we see them try and ride it out and get that positive regression to eventually come? And there's no way to know, because we need to play more games.
I think it will come. I think, again, we talked about this before. The Rangers haven't scored in their 3 home games, but it's not for a lack of trying. I think the number was like over 9 goals. That, again, if you replay those games, if you replay those situations, which is not how reality works, but, that's in a normal situation, you would score 9 goals in those 3 games as opposed to 0. So the level, the style of play is repeatable. They do need, this is not really an opinion, because you saw that in the first 7 games. You need more players that are able to find something out of nothing and be able to score a goal and find a way to crack open a game per se. We saw that a little bit against Montreal, where Zibanejad and Panarin, the 2 guys that we talked about that really needed to step up as some of the bigger guys on this team, bigger leaders on this team, they stepped up and they delivered. Same thing with JT Miller, right? He got that deflection, I think it was on that second goal. And these are the guys that you expect the most out of. JT Miller's the captain. Zibanejad's been here for forever. Panarin is making $11 million. These are the names that you want to see on the score sheet game in and game out. And yeah, Noah Laba's scoring is great. Taylor Raddysh's scoring is great. And Connor Carrick playing amazing hockey out of nowhere. At age, 32, 33, whatever age he is not something that I expected to say out loud in 2025, but here we are. He's playing great, and that's awesome, and that's great to have. But Sam Carrick is not scoring you 20 goals. You need that from Panarin, Zibanejad, JT Miller, whomstever it is, playing up at the top six. Maybe Connor Sherry can turn back the clock and score 20 goals. Who knows? But until that happens, they really, the Rangers were already leaning on Panarin and these guys to score a bunch. And now it's okay. You really gotta dial in and you really gotta score here, because the Rangers, we're not giving up too much defensively. It's up to you now to break that even keel and push us over the line, because, Shesterkin's great. You're not going to win a game 0-0. You got to go out there and score. You got to get it done. That's what you're paid for.
It's an interesting question, because if the offense doesn't eventually come, you're going to reach a tipping point. But the benefit, or I should say the good part of it, is the hockey has been good. The results have been there.
Yes.
And that brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about on my agenda today. Actually, second to last thing. After watching 4 years, so the 2 Gallant years and the 2 Laviolette years of constantly being told, well, they're winning hockey games. It doesn't really matter what the underlying results say. The hockey players, they don't look at expected goals. They don't look at scoring chances. To have spent the previous 4 years hearing that, and now I hear JT Miller saying, well, I'm going to sleep well because I thought we played tonight. Well, JT, why do you think you played well tonight? Well, we had more shots on goal. We outpossessed them. It's just hilarious to watch that effect in real time, where, and this is true of everybody, that old joke about PFF, where if the PFF numbers say good things about your team, it's good. If it's not, it's garbage. It's math. It's not football. That's kind of where we're at now in the hockey world. And I find it eminently fascinating, because you can understand both. You can understand both simultaneously. Sure. And that active, willful ignorance is just a byproduct of familiarity and comfort. When the team isn't playing well but winning games, well, we're not worried about it. We don't look at that stuff. Now the team is playing well, but the results aren't coming. We're not worried about it. The numbers say we're doing well. It's just crazy to watch that happen in real time and how easy it is to switch up. And I don't think JT Miller's got an evolving hockey subscription or anything, but you can tell the difference.
He might. I don't know. He's got the money for it, so
I mean, you would think. I know $10 a month. It's the old joke. You give me, Jay Fresh, and 3 other Twitter shit posters $100 worth of Patreon subscriptions. We would do a better job than Steve Yzerman's doing in Detroit right now. I'm not saying we would win games as the Red Wings, but we'd have a better roster. We wouldn't be paying Andrew Kopp and Ben Sherratt the money they're getting paid. But yeah, it's just funny to watch how convenient it is for certain people when it's convenient. And look, I understand that my priorities as a fan, as a content person, are different than that of the players. They don't care how they win. They just want to win the games. But it's just funny to watch in real time those same people who have said for years, well, we don't look at that stuff. It's not that important. Cite that as being reasons that we're not worried about it. It can be both. That's all I want to say, man. Yeah. It can be both.
It's got to be a mix of everything. You can't only look at the eye test. You can't only look at the numbers, right? Because you got to play the games. At the end of the day, you got to go out there and play them. You don't play the hockey games on a spreadsheet, on a calculator, like the people that like to clown the analytics have to say all the time, right? It's got to be both. Okay, are you playing well eye test wise, or what do the numbers say? How you have to look at all possible angles, and analytics are just one of the angles that you use to quantify how good you're playing. It's a resource at your disposal. It's not a be-all, end-all. The same way the eye test is not the be-all, end-all. You watch the games, you play the games, and you analyze the games, and everything together gives you the best possible picture that you can put together of how did we play, how did this player play, the goals that went in, should they have, on an average, on a regular night, is this a shot that's going to go in? Because you can use that data to then tweak your game plan for the next time. Like, okay, last time we did this play and this play worked because of that. Okay, so now we can do this. Like, there's a lot of positives that can come out of using multiple vantage points in sports to create an overall summary or a viewpoint or what have you, instead of just going, all in on one or all in on another or all in on none and just being like, I watched the game and played 45 years ago, so I know better than you. That doesn't do anything. It does nothing. You have to use everything at your disposal to create the best possible understanding of what's going on the ice. And yeah, it is very funny to me that we have swung the pendulum almost the completely other way from, analytics don't matter at all because they say that we're bad, to, the analytics are great because they're telling us we're playing well. So it is funny.
And then the last thing, time for a very premature victory lap. Igor Shesterkin's good at hockey. If you were complaining about that contract.
Adam Fox. Oh my God. And Adam Fox. Guys, the amount of tweets that I've seen, that you've seen, that we have gotten, that Adam Fox is bad at hockey. Guys, are we happy now? Are you satisfied? Like, the bridge that I sold you, are you sure you still want to keep it? Like, guys, come on. This is it's so funny. It's really funny. And we don't bet, like, no one bats 1,000. No, we're not out here on our high horses saying that we're always right about everything, and we're never like we're wrong. We're wrong. That it happens, guys. Adam Fox is really good at hockey, and so is Shesterkin. I don't know. This shouldn't be breaking news to people. It really, really shouldn't be. The fact that it is hilarious,
and that's why. And look, we talked about this a lot last year, but people get so married to the results because they say, well, if Shesterkin is that good, why is the team not winning? If Adam Fox isn't that good, why isn't the team winning? And right now you're watching both of those guys play really well. The process is really good. And you're starting to realize, it's hard to win in professional sports. That's the takeaway from the first 3 weeks of the Rangers season. You can do everything right. And other than opening night against Pittsburgh, the Rangers have played 6 straight pretty good games. 6 straight games where if you get 1 or 2 breaks to go your way, you win those 6 games. And if you can keep racking these performances up as you iron out the kinks, as you figure out what this team is going to be, once you get to that foundation, once you get to your baseline of how we're going to play every given night, then we could start talking about roster additions or call-ups, because you have 2 players, especially Shesterkin, who's been great out of the box, best goalie in the league so far. He's giving up 1 goal per game, and he's got like a .940 save percentage through the first 4 starts this year, 5 starts he's made. You get that, you're going to hang around a lot. And those numbers will come down, of course, but you sit here and you just think about all of the discourse, and you miss the boat. If you thought Shesterkin and Adam Fox were the reason the team struggled last year, you're just not right. Just objectively, you were not right. Sure, were they as good as they had been in their careers? No. Adam Fox was still a top 10 defenseman in hockey. Shesterkin was still a top 7 or 8 goalie in hockey. That is how bad the Rangers were last year, that having a top 10 goalie and defenseman did not matter. So the fact that the results aren't where they need to be, but the process is good. Shesterkin has come out of the gate hot. That gives you a lot to work with. And right now, it's worth having the optimistic, the bullish outlook. Now, if it's the end of November, early December, and they're still bottom 10 in the league in goals per game, then we can have a conversation about this isn't working. But for right now, you do unfortunately have to trust the process.
If we get to, it's been 7 games. If we get to game 46 and the Rangers are still not scoring as much, then, obviously at that point, it's like, okay, well, now we got to do something about that right away. It's game 7. I think getting goalied in October really changes the perception of a lot of not only the stats, but, the eye test and the perception early on. And I think, give it 2 weeks. If the Rangers come out against Minnesota tonight at home and score 4 goals and win the game, I think a lot of the worry starts to disappear. I think if they follow that up, because they're playing San Jose on Thursday at home as well, I think if they win both of those games and they score at a relatively high clip, I think a lot of these worries and a lot of these, fears are going to dissipate pretty quickly, because at least on the road, they're scoring at a relatively high clip, minus Toronto, of course. But at home, it's been 3 games. They've scored 0 goals. So that is going to change. And I think once that happens, that early hump will, they'll kind of get over it and it'll be better. I am, still a little bit worried because they're just not scoring enough, but they are playing the right way. And this is a type of style that they can replicate, and the goals are going to come, I think, more than, we're going to get outshot 84-9, but win 4-3 because that's how our team plays. That is, that's one way to play the game, but I think they're doing it the right way right now.
And that's really all you can ask, because hockey is such a high variance sport, and we'll end on this. You're going to be subject to the whims of puck bounces. It's why the playoffs are so challenging. It's why the process doesn't necessarily equal the results. Hockey is very different from the other sports in that respect, where in baseball, if you hit the ball hard over and over again, the defense will catch it, they'll make plays, you'll get outs, but it's fundamentally different. It is a lot easier for me to talk myself into a team that's hitting the ball well, to start hitting doubles and home runs. Same thing in basketball. If a really good shooting team is having a cold night, I can assume the next time out there, it'll correct itself. And in football, if you're moving the ball up and down the field, but interceptions, fumbles, we know those don't stick week to week. You won't have the same turnover problems over and over again. Whereas hockey, it is really easy to play well and not get rewarded for it. So that's really the key. Can the Rangers withstand this early season bad shooting luck and get to where they want to be? Can they get to a 9-10% shooting team at all strengths combined? Because then if they get to that, and even if they trade a little bit of the game control they've had so far, they're going to win a lot of hockey games. If they're a 10% shooting team, if the power play can be mediocre instead of bad, this is a team that can win a lot of games just by virtue of playing the type of hockey they've been playing so far. And that's encouraging. That's really encouraging.
I think this team can only go up if they continue to play this way. And that is the key takeaway here is there's optimism. You're optimistic about the plan to this point. You're optimistic about the way they've played, the way that they're handling some of the early adversity of not being able to score at home. You are, I think, as an overall, the trajectory is good, which you couldn't really say that last year, minus the first 6 weeks of the season. To see this kind of correction, especially still in October, because we talked about it, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, with Alain Vigneault, it took 2 months to get his system going and to get a lot of that early stuff out of the way. With Mike Sullivan, it took 1 game. It's been only 7 games, small sample size, but minus the Pittsburgh game, the system is working. And I think that is really positive. And that's, I think that's another token to the optimistic row that we have here is there's a lot here to like about this team. And one of them is, it really did not take a whole lot and a whole lot along a time for this roster to buy into what Mike Sullivan wanted. And, oh my God, they're a hockey team again. This is amazing.
That'll do it for this week's edition of Liberty Blue. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or over on YouTube. Andrew and I will talk to you guys next week.
Later.